Today, the topic of what I want to share about is the transformational power of spiritual integrity. And when I knew that today's topic would be about integrity, the first thing that comes up for me is bummer. Because it would be great if I could stand up here and say, for the first 50 years of my life, I've been perfect. But then I thought I'd be okay because I don't know how many of us can stand up here and say for our entire life we've never been out of integrity once. Anybody else been out of integrity besides me? All right, half of you. All right. The rest of you just are going to come back to integrity really quick. So today, step 5 out of the 12-step program, as you know, for those of us that have been with us since the beginning of the year, we've been combining the 12-step program and the 12 promises of AA along with 12 spiritual principles of the universe in essence, as well as 12 spiritual action steps that we can take to assist us in our spiritual growth. So we've created a wonderful map for us to follow, a guideline, a course, a program. And so step 5 is a tough one. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and here's the catchy part, and to another person, another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. So that means at some point in our life, as we're doing what I talked about on Easter, kenosis, the Greek word is kenosis, an emptying of self, an emptying of stuff. And that's what step 5 is calling us to do, to empty out of this punch bowl of thoughts, emotions, and feelings anything that has not served us up unto this day, May 15th, 2011. And to do that emptying process takes a lot of courage. In fact, 99.5% of the people on earth will never do it. Because why? We're afraid. We've dealt with fear. Need courage. Opposite fear, courage. To do something that others don't do regularly. So this takes strength. This takes inner fortitude and belief in oneself that you have enough courage and trust in that thing bigger than you to empty of self. And then today, what owns up or what assists us in the emptying of self, admitting to God, self, and others, our nature of wrongs, is to have integrity to do that. Whew. To have integrity. So we want to look at then, what exactly is integrity? Is it keeping your word? Is it speaking your truth? Is it living your conscience? Is it taking care of your responsibilities? It's yes to all those things are integrity, but these are aspects of personal integrity. Let's not confuse personal integrity with what we're talking about, the transformational power of spiritual integrity. We all need to be operating on personal integrity. It starts as essentially every day. Personal integrity can be everything with making sure that we keep ourselves clean, to making sure that we honor the people that we walk by on the sidewalk and we don't elbow them. There's many ways that personal integrity comes into play, and we need it as a society or we couldn't function. But what we're talking about here is spiritual integrity. And it's really simple to define what spiritual integrity is. It's about wholeness and authenticity. It's about being whole and embracing our wholeness so that we cease walking around as if we're wounded individuals that we can't ever move forward and grow into our embracing our greatness. And it's being authentic in who and what we are. That we're willing to look at those weaknesses and our strengths. And I like to focus on our weaknesses because I know that as we strengthen our weaknesses, we become stronger. If we only do what we're really good at, then we leave and we become one-dimensional. And we are multi-dimensional beings by nature. So we want to always be focusing on, or looking at, not always, but looking at a lot of what is our weaknesses in our life, and if integrity's ever been a weakness, because it's been for me. It's been an ongoing battle. Each of us knows what is truth to us, yet we do not hold the same truth as each other. Do you understand that? That's a huge statement that really we could spend the next 3 hours talking about. That little line. Each of us knows what is truth to us. We all know our truth. And you know what? We expect everybody else to know that same truth. Don't you? I mean, have you ever tried to guess how you think others want you to act, behave, and speak, and attempted to adjust your actions accordingly? Have you ever done that? Because you thought by doing that, that would be their truth too. And then my favorite is, have you ever not spoken up because you were afraid that you might hurt another's feelings? But in the meantime, here's the part, in the meantime, your feelings were being hurt by their words or actions, and you assume, though, they are operating at your same level of understanding, and figure they must know that you are hurt, that they are hurting you. But in truth, they don't. But how many times have you repeated that behavior in a variety of circumstantial situations? Each of us knows what is truth to us. And we've all experienced 2 or more people sharing the same event, but reporting very different experiences. Have you not? Nelson has his brother here, Craig, over from Vancouver. Now, I'd be willing to bet they might have 2 unique stories growing up in their life. Just as my brother and I had a different story about our childhood. But we expect my story to be my brother's the same, and my brother expected his story to be my story. But it wasn't, because we all have our unique understandings of what truth. So is the other person lying? Perhaps. If there is an underlying motive. But most often the inevitable differences are created by personal perspectives and worldviews, or perhaps the uniqueness of the view of our soul. We come into this life with a different purpose. We have different lessons that color the way we perceive our experiences of the world. Have you ever noticed that you perceive the world different than even your closest person here on earth to you? Have you noticed? Now, who's right and who's wrong? Is it each of our unique, perfect truths? It is absolutely essential that we live in integrity and truth, but how are we to know what is our truth in a world of so many truths? In this information age, we have access to so many master teachers in so many places and ages that have shed their light over the years. Surely they must have the answers in there somewhere. And they have, but for their time. Some of it is still relevant today. But our task is to find the way that expresses our personal truth and bring that truth into the world through our current life today. We often speak of a person when we talk about their integrity as being soft or firm, base or noble character. Though people often say, "What can I do? I am made like that." Is character really static, meaning stationary? Or can we mold or build our character by analyzing our emotional and moral nature? A little observation makes it clear that morals backed by a strong will play a vital role in character building. A person of firm character is always integrated. A good moral character implies spiritual integrity. Character building is a continuous process. It is not just transition from being a bad person to a good person. I really want you to hear that. See, a lot of times we've maybe had times in our life where we've really been troubled. You know, we're talking about addictions, bad behaviors, habits that have not supported ourselves, our spiritual relationship to that higher power, or those around us, or our community, the highest and best good. And sometimes we think that a spiritual person becomes one that just stops doing those things and they become a good person. There's much more to living a life of spiritual integrity than just simply being a good person that goes to work, does their duties, comes home, does their thing, goes to bed, and starts the day all over again. We're talking about elevating a step above that, or 2 steps, or 3 steps, to growing into a spiritual person. For as we proceed, we realize that it is a simultaneous process of breaking and building. You see, along this path of spiritual integrity, we are going to have moments where we break that flow of integrity. Have you had a moment or two in your life where you've been going along and all of a sudden there's a little blip in your spiritual path of integrity? How come it's always the same three people answering? And those little blips then, what do we do with them? Do we learn from them? Do we grow from them? Or do we go along and we have that same blip again? And then we go along a little further and we have that same blip again. Well, the great thing about spiritual integrity is it's what keeps bringing you back to your baseline. And you can start again. If you broke your integrity an hour ago, you can start again right now at this moment to getting back on that path. And what our intention always is, how long can we stay on that path? And our intention every morning when we wake up is I'm going to do my best to be on that path today. AA preaches over and over, what about today? Take one day at a time. Any of you ever been able to live 2 days in a row at a time? You may think it, and actually we make ourselves so busy. You know, we make ourselves so busy right now. We live in one day what people over 100 years ago used to live in a week or more. We pack so much into a day. What did we used to get up, had to go get maybe some wood, get the fire going in the thing. We had to get some food. We had to go out and garden a little bit and bake, maybe farm, hook the cows up, whatever it was, come in and that. How many of us do like 100 more things than that a day? Not a week, a day. And then we wonder why we're worn out. It's because you've lived a month and a week. That's how much we pack in. So it's that one day at a time. Maybe morals and values have been challenged at times. Maybe behavior. All those. I got all those. And I wish there had been a time, I really wish I could live one of those virtuous lives when I look back and go, you know what, I never fell off the path. I wish, but I fell off a path because I had a little help of that which came before me. And that's what I want to look at now. Is I want to look at what has caused us to be who we are at this moment in our life. And I'm going to see if this plays out for any of you. So I'm going to call up some of you and I need you to come up and role play. All you're going to do is hold the space. Doesn't mean I think you actually were this person. You're going to just hold the space. All right. So you know that we forget who came before us 2 generations ago. How many of you knew your great-grandparents? Know their name, where they're from? There always will probably be one hand here. Most of us don't. One. There's always an exception. Couple. I didn't know anything about my great-grandparents. Didn't know a thing about them. Okay? So what Heather's going to represent is all 4 of my great-grandparents. Okay? Or I guess I'd had more than that, wouldn't I? I would have had 8. That's probably why I didn't know them. So my great-grandparents. And so when they all came into the world, they came in as nice, beautiful, clean spirits, represented by water. So this represents all of my great-grandparents. Now, like all of you, they had experiences in life. Maybe they grew up in a home that they weren't always told or appreciated and loved. Maybe back in those days, 150 years ago, they had some physical abuse growing up. It was a pretty common thing. And then, maybe they had some hard times financially, health-wise. Maybe they were in a relationship that wasn't real nurturing. And before long, you get quite a little mess going here. Now, the thing about this beautiful mess there, then they got together and they had my grandparents. This is on my dad's side. So, let's see, I want you to hold that one. That one. All right. And so, when they came into the world, guess what? They were all nice and clear and pure and innocent when they were first born. Beautiful, precious. But being raised by these parents, or a little in there, by their own grandparents, is they passed a little of their stuff on to them. So we have the next generation of wounding took place. And then they had their own personal experiences. And who knows what they went through. Maybe they weren't nurtured a lot. Maybe they didn't have much physical contact. Hold on. Maybe they didn't have much physical contact growing up, as far as hugs and being embraced, being encouraged. Maybe they had a lot of chores to do. Maybe they had a lot of chores and responsibilities. And maybe, like my grandpa, was one of 9 kids, 6 boys and 3 girls. And there was a lot of physical labor he had to endure from an early time to help the family get by, which also meant a lot of physical beatings. Then comes along my mom's side, as their parent, comes into being. They're all nice and pure and clean. Oops, give me a little bath. You're all pure and clean. And they have their own issues, which my grandpa, being raised in Germany, never spoke about his parents to my mom because they were so cruel. My grandma does not remember being loved, cared for, or nurtured, as she often shared. And then they went through their own experiences, hurtful, traumatic experiences that they went through. Having a difficult marriage, being unhappy, etc., etc. And then they came into relationship with each other. These two got together and produced my mom. Then they passed a little of their stuff onto here. See if you can pour a little bit in there. My grandpa should have been in prison for physical abuse of my mother. If he had done to her what he did back 60, 80 years ago, today he would be put in prison for a long time for the child abuse that he took out on my mother. I want to make that really clear. And then she had her own painful experiences growing up. Being told she couldn't go to Stanford University when she was offered a full ride because she needed to work on their 6 acres of organic farm in Oregon. Being one of the smartest people I'd ever met in my life, being told she couldn't have an education. Being essentially date raped by my dad on their first time together, causing my dad to have to marry her out of obligation, and being miserable in a relationship for 28 years. And then my dad came into the world. And when he came in, all pure, happy, clear, but experienced the pain from his great-grandparents, from his parents. Let me dump this out. You can spill it, we're renting. Just kidding, it's only food color. Oh yeah, back to integrity. So then, stuff from his parents were passed into his pure, clean spirit, and then life growing up. Perhaps my dad's earliest, biggest disappointment is the contract that he was offered to play baseball for the New York Yankees and minor league he turned down because he didn't think $100 was enough to come up here and play in Canada. And he regretted it ever since. And the 28 years that he spent with my mom, good, bad, or indifferent, there was physical, verbal, and emotional abuse that took place. And then these two got together. And I came into this world all bright and happy and shiny. But then each of them, by never feeling good enough for my dad, by my mom being sexually inappropriate to me, and then my own stuff. Growing up with a very thin body and tall body and being made fun of and picked on continuously, it felt like. Never feeling like I could ever be a good enough athlete for my dad because I couldn't live out his dream of being a professional athlete. My mom not knowing boundaries very good. My own ineptitudes and mistakes and being out of integrity. And before long, I have a pretty good dirty glass of water. Does this look like anybody else? Now, you want to know what spiritual integrity is? It's when we own up to this thing right here. When we own up to it and we quit blaming our ancestral heritage for what they passed down from generations to us. That when we take into account that we're going to do everything in our life, when you get on your spiritual journey, it means you're going to do everything in your life to clear this water up. And if you think you can walk around and not do anything about this on a regular basis, the world is still flat. We have proved over and over now scientifically, morally, spiritually, philosophically, psychologically, the importance of doing this type of work, of cleaning this water up, because this is what allows me to see you in a distorted perspective. Not to see you as the bright, beautiful, authentic, true, whole people that you are on the inside at a soulful level. And to own this, why do we want to own this? And why do we want to be working on this? Because when I speak in the next few moments as the I am sense, I'm speaking for all of us. Because when I come into relationship with you, I'm counting that you've done your work. I'm counting that you've owned this up and that you're working on yourself. I'm counting that you don't have 20 to 50 or more years built up of resentment, of anger, of fury, of rage, of hurtful, painful emotions stored up in your cup, so that the first time you're told no or you're not agreed with, or there's a certain look on somebody's face, you're not blowing your stack. True? And do we not hold this that we assume that everybody we come into contact has done their work? Why do we still do that? Why do we believe there's purity in everyone? Because when we came into this world, we believed our parents were pure, and our grandparents were pure, and our great-grandparents, and our great-great-grandparents. We believed they were all pure, holy, and had our highest and best good in mind, or they'd have never had us. And then we walk around with this. But because we can't see it, because this is anchored in the center of our head and in the center of our heart. And if we don't do something about this, it's going to come out mainly in two ways. This behavior will come out in bad habits. This pool of water, cup of water, will come out in bad behaviors, addictions, or bad habits. Or we'll internalize it and it will come out and show up in forms of cancer. As I read from the latest research that Sandy Photo sent to me about what Johns Hopkins says about cancer. Johns Hopkins, leading research university maybe in the world on cancer, says every person has cancer cells in their body. These cancer cells do not show up in the standard tests until they've multiplied to a few billion. When doctors tell cancer patients that there are no more cancer cells in their body after treatment, it just means the tests are unable to detect the cancer cells because they've not reached the detectable size. Cancer cells occur between 6 to more than 10 times in a person's lifetime. And when the person's immune system is strong, the cancer cells will be destroyed and prevented from multiplying and forming tumors. This stuff right here, when we internalize it and hold it in and deny it and pretend it doesn't exist, is what breaks down your immune system. Do you understand that? This is grating on you every moment of every day. My heart opens wide when I have somebody that's been carrying sexual abuse 50, 60, 70 years inside of them and opens up and shares it with me or someone else. That's what this fifth step is about. What are you carrying in your cup that you haven't been willing to look at? It takes integrity to want to focus on this because it's too easy to get distracted by all the stuff in our life. So what we do is we spend a little time in meditation. Oh, that's nice. Ooh. Then what happens? Why we don't like to meditate is because we get a glimpse of this. And then, ooh, I don't want to do that. Oh, who sent me something on Facebook? You know, that important, valuable tool, Facebook. You know, where we feel so deeply connected to all those friends that we've never seen. And we want to know what they're up to. Because, my God, I don't want to look at this. But every time we deal with each other, we're dealing with this. Every time. So since I can't really show you what it does, I can get really close. Watch this. Some of you have seen this before. Do everybody know who Masaru Emoto? He came around again with the Japanese earthquake, telling us about, to pray, because when we pray for the water to heal, it can heal all that is around it. We know that our thought has control over water because he's proved it scientifically. Can't argue with this. Here's the proof in front of you. What Emoto did is he developed a technique using a very powerful microscope in a very cold room along with high-speed photography to photograph newly formed crystals of frozen water samples. Dr. Emoto proved that thoughts and feelings affect physical reality. What he did is he took a glass of water and he wrapped the word around it just like this. Wisdom. He just took a piece of paper, cut it in a strip, and he wrapped it around, and he let it set for 24 hours when he froze it. And then he was able to take a crystal out, a part of the water, and view it, and photograph it, so that when the word wisdom, what it looked like after being wrapped around the water, frozen, and then filming that crystallized molecule, this is what it looked like. That's a water crystal. Are you following me? Okay, next one. Now, what starts to turn our water dirty? It's the thing that we want the most in life, happiness. So any form of happiness, he just took the word, wrapped it around here, 24 hours, froze it, took a photograph of the crystal. And here's what unhappiness looks like. Look at that. Just remember what wisdom looked like, and if you don't, we'll show it to you in a few minutes again. Next. This is unhappiness right here. You're stupid. Greatest insult you can ever tell another human being. It's worse than saying F you to a person. You're telling a child at any age that you're stupid is one of the harshest things we can say and demeaning terms we can use to another human being. So anytime we've ever used it to ourselves or to another person on earth, we have been out of integrity. And anytime that we think about it to ourselves, we are out of integrity with our spirit, our soul. You are calling that essence that created you stupid. Yeah? Go out and try to make a body and see how well you can do. See if you can put 30 to 50 trillion cells together in a system that can circulate millions of gallons of blood over a lifetime. A heart that can beat billions of times. See how you can do if you think the spirit that put you together is stupid and you're insulting it by saying to yourself, you're stupid? That sounds pretty stupid to me. So here's what it does to the water. Next one. Abuse. Emotional, mental, physical, religious, verbal. Any type of abuse. Here's what it does to the water crystal. Last one. The thing that we're most afraid of, that we don't like to deal with, anger, which includes resentment, pent-up frustration, violence, any of that stuff. This is what anger does. This is the most remarkable one of the negative side. If you look really close, I've been showing these slides for 5 years. If you look really close, you almost look like a man with a blindfold, and he's got a knife and he's stabbing. Anger. That's the shape the crystal took by 24 hours wrapping it around. Next up. Now, so what happens when we begin to shift? Look what happens when we go from unhappiness, wrap the word happy. Here's what it does to the water crystal. Look at the difference. Go to the next. Opposite of you're stupid, well done, good job, way to go, you did well. When you get emails from me, I always say, way to go, well done, look at the crystal. How many of you like a piece of jewelry looking like that? Next, finally, the last one, what's opposite of anger or abuse? Family love, feeling love in a family instead of abuse. When we go home to our family as a child, as a young adult, That should have been the safest place, not a place that we had to be on guard and worried about who was going to do what to who. It should have been our safe retreat. It should have been our sacred sanctuary. Not a place where we had to be on guard all the time, that it was more dangerous to be at home than anywhere else out in the world. That's not healthy. Look what it does to the water, Crystal. Family love. Look, there's Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Baby Bear. Finally, love. What's the opposite of anger? Love. Look what it does to the crystal. Look at that. That's a water crystal. So let us show you side by side what our thoughts do to affecting the shape of a crystal of water. Do you see the difference? So how much of this are you carrying? Now, here's why we want to be doing our work. Those that went before us perhaps didn't do theirs. But my child that will come after me, and that is coming after me right now, has no defense from 3, 2, 1, and her current generation. She has no defense against it. So it's up to me to have enough integrity to do my very, 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 very best not to pass any of this on to my 2 daughters. That's what spiritual integrity is about. And why is this so important? Why is this stuff? How much of your body is water? When we're a child, it's 90%, so we can be flexible, malleable, bendable. We can get out the womb. As an adult, you're 70% water. Take a little leap. What do you think our heads, knowing that our thoughts impact water, is doing to our bodies? So how do we heal? How do we heal? Number 1, you cannot get around dealing directly with what is in this glass. I've been in the business for 23 years. I have been through all kinds of emotional, spiritual growth experiences, and you cannot deal with this stuff without getting directly in it. I can't clean out a swimming pool by looking in from the outside and going, oh yeah, that should be clean. I got to get in and do the work. That means you got to do your emotional processing. I've made my living off of 23 years of helping people clean this stuff out, and it's frightening, and it takes courage to look at it the first time. But we have to continue to do our work. That's what Free the Heart, that's what the 5-day is always about, is cleaning this cup. And the thing about it, and I want you all to understand this, is don't live in the illusion that once you do a little work or some work on this that you're done. It's an ongoing practice. This doesn't stay clean forever because you did something 20 years ago, 8 years ago, or 3 years ago. It's an ongoing work that we all have to have an ongoing, emotional, healthy, spiritual practice. Then what comes next? Meditation. Meditation, praying. What does meditation do? It was just, I spoke about it in meditation this morning, is Harvard came out with, on national news again, just 4 days ago, and ABC was covering it in the States, saying that when we meditate, it immediately strengthens the part of our brain that is associated or connected with compassion, the highest form of love, and self-awareness, meaning being aware of something greater than ourselves. And it diminishes the part of the brain and reduces it in size that is closely related and is believed where the cause of source comes from in the brain. That's what meditation does. So that's the spiritual practice, along with prayer. What does prayer do for you? Miracles. Doing our emotional work. Meditation through prayer. And finally, the last 2 is very simple, selfless service. Selfless service is what helps clean the water, finally, through affirmations and developing a healthy lifestyle, which includes a healthy diet, exercise regularly, 20 to 30 minutes every other day at least, yoga, walks in nature, and when you're standing in front of that mirror in the morning, you're telling yourself how awesome, how incredible, how beautiful you are, just like the song said, as well as being of integrity in every area and avenue of our life. And if you break it once, you wake up the next day and say, today I am going to do my very best. And finally, I want to sum it up by this wonderful writing by Ernest Holmes, the founder of Religious Science, which is the New Thought movement that I'm ordained in. He writes, I shall keep the promise that I have made to myself. I shall never again tell myself that I am poor, sick, weak, or unhappy. I shall not lie to myself anymore, but shall daily speak the truth of my inner soul, telling it what it is, that it is wonderful and marvelous, that it is one with the great cause of all life, truth, power, and action. I shall whisper these things into my soul until it breaks forth into songs of joy with the realization of its limitless possibilities. I shall assure my soul. Yeah. Amen.